So how can you possibly take a stock amp sim like this one from Logic and make it sound good enough to feature in your next song? What steps can you take to get it from sounding like this to this? Hello and welcome. If you make punk rock or similar music and want to take your recordings to the next level, then hopefully this channel can help. As you may have discovered, the stock guitar amps in Logic or any DAW have never been that great, which is a shame because there seems to be a lot we could do with them if only they could give us a pro level tone. Well, I'm going to show you how I stumbled upon an easy way to get this stock amp sim to sound great. And I'm sure you can use this for any stock or free amp sim that you currently have, but just can't use yet. So how can we achieve this? By swapping out the cab impulse response, obviously, but that isn't quite the whole story. So let's dial in a great punk rock tone using the stock Marshall amp sim from Logic, and my secret weapon, my go-to cabinet impulse response, the oversized Cali from GGD. But also, later on in the video, I'll do it with a free cabinet IR as well, so hang around for that. So what you heard in the intro were the default settings when you load up the amp in Logic, which are these. And straight away, you can hear it needs more gain. Usually on an amp like this, you don't need to crank the gain this much, but for some reason with these stock amp heads, you do. But even if we whack that gain up now, it still sounds pretty bad. I've turned that to 10, let's hear it. It sounds better, but it still kind of sounds strange. And there's something that lacks a sense of realism with these. So what I did first was bring up the pedal board in Logic and use this vintage drive pedal. This is just a distortion pedal, so anything will do. There are free ones out there. I'm sure you can easily get your hands on one that sounds pretty decent. So I took the DI and I ran it through this first of all. It sounds like this. You got to give it to Logic with this pedal, that sounds pretty nice. So next we go to the cabinet section here and ignore all of these and go straight for direct, which basically turns the cab simulator in the plugin off so that I can chuck on my favorite GGD oversized Cali. So this is just one cabinet with basically a blend of different mics, 57, the KM184 and the Royer 121 blended into different levels with slightly different EQ down here at the dark setting. So let's hear that with the gain up to 10, a slight boost on the mids. I left the treble where it is and I brought the presence down a little bit. So we're getting way closer, right? Especially if you compare that to this, where we started. Yeah, but there's still some EQ that we need to do. So let's hunt through and take it a step further. All these Logic stock amp sims seem really, really harsh sounding. So there's going to be a lot of treatment to the top end. And the sort of like 2 to 5K area is going to need a lot of work. Let's start. Trying not to go overboard and kill the brightness, but you know, it's not making it easy. So now that I've taken away a lot of the presence and that harshness, we are getting a way more usable tone. But now I'm starting to hear some kind of sort of low mid mud that's ruining the clarity of the tone. So let's go hunt for that. Okay, let's hear this EQ on and on and see if we've actually made it better. Just quickly, if you make music like this and want me to mix your next release, then head over to terrybeckleyrecording.com. There you can fill out the contact form and I will get back to you. Okay, back to it. Yeah, got rid of those whistles and a bit of growl, a much clearer tone. Let's try and bring some of that brightness back with the Waves SSL channel. Okay, so I'm going to use the filters and then we're going to go for the 8K shelf, get something nice out of it. Cool, 1.2 decibels, about as much as I can get before it starts to bring back all of those whistles and stuff we worked so hard to get rid of before. Now this next plugin I'm going to use is some saturation from the Saturn II plugin. This is an expensive plugin and an optional step. I just like to make it sound a bit more like a real amp, and I also want to sort of thicken up the low end of the tone just to give it a bit more balance because I still feel like it's a little harsh. Let's see where we get. Cool. So that's obviously very subtle, but it does give a sense of realism to it that I'm just not getting from the stock amp. Definitely an optional step, you know, it doesn't make that much of a difference. You'd be fine without it. So you haven't got to go spend 200 quid or how much this plugin costs now. Although I do recommend it if ever you find yourself with a spare 200 quid because it works so good on like everything. Okay, so I know it's kind of unfair on Logic, but why don't we compare the default setting that we had to what we've got now? We'll go back and forth and we'll see just how much of an improvement we've made. So the first tone you hear, that's the default setting, and then the very obviously different second tone you hear, that's the one that we've worked on. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous, but I just wanted to prove to you guys and myself that these stock amps are not a lost cause. So moving on from here, yes, the oversized Cali is a paid plugin. It's not that expensive, you know, it's only a cabinet IR, but I still had to pay for it. So why don't we do it with a free cabinet IR instead? So these cabinet IRs are free from Lancaster Audio, and so is this Pulse plugin you can see here, which just loads up the WAVs basically. So in the interest of not boring you, rather than dialing this all in live, I'm going to show you what I did to get to this, because it took me quite a while to get it to work. This is what I ended up with. Cool. So one way I dealt with all the extra harshness of this amp was to EQ the DI before the amp. And I found that this massive 15 decibel cut of 2K here doesn't actually sound that drastic, but it stopped all of that from running into the amp because the amp just seemed to go nuts in this area. And that's how I got a much smoother top end out of it. Same pedal board as before, same amp settings as before. We've got the free cabinet impulse response, which I will link to in the description so you can go and download this if you wanted to. And now this EQ here, which is pretty much, I copied over the one from before. So we've still got the 1.5K cut. We've got the just below 4K cut and this here just above 2K cut. Then I've added to it just under 3K and then one around 7K because there was a lot of hissiness still coming from it. We've still got our normal low mid cleanup cut there too. Let me show you this EQ now before and after. Quite drastic. Then I followed it up with the Waves SSL again, exactly the same settings as before, and the same Saturn II. Let's hear that. Cool, so the trade-off here is that you have to kill the presence and the brightness because the amp is so harsh. But as a rhythm tone that doesn't need to take center stage, this is very usable. So let's compare the Cali and the free cabinet, starting with the free one. Cool. If you found this useful and want to see some settings for your amp sims that really work for punk rock and similar music, then please check out my other videos. You'll also find helpful videos on vocals, bass, drums, and entire mixes for pop punk and emo music and similar stuff. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you at the next one.